The first thing Captain Elias Vorn noticed was the silence. It wasn't the normal silence of space, that kind faded into the background until it became invisible. This silence didn't fade. It pressed. It lingered. It felt like something was holding its breath. The Gravemarch was not a quiet ship. It creaked when it adjusted course. It hummed when the engines cycled. It clicked in the walls when the temperature shifted. Elias knew every one of those sounds the way a man knows his own heartbeat, so when they stopped, he didn't need a warning. He didn't look at the sensors. He looked at the dog. Brim had lifted his head from the floor beside the pilot's chair. His ears were forward. His body was still. And then came the growl. Low. Steady. Controlled. Not. Fear not. Panic. A warning. Elias exhaled slowly through his nose. Yeah, he murmured. I hear it too. He didn't actually hear anything yet, but he trusted Brim more than any system ever built. In 7 years, the dog had never been wrong. Not once. Elias stood up, joints stiff but movements unhurried. He didn't rush. Panic made people sloppy. And whatever was coming wasn't sloppy. The impact came seconds later. A heavy, controlled thud rolled through the hull, deep enough to feel in the bones. Not debris, not random. Docking. Without permission. Elias closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. Not fear, just confirmation. Well, he said quietly, guess today's different. The cargo bay door didn't open. It exploded inward. Metal tore with a violent crack, folding like paper under pressure. 4 figures dropped through the breach one after another, landing light and balanced. Their movements were clean. Too clean. Cliff for desperation. Too precise for amateurs. Professionals. Double quotes human. One of them said, its voice flattened by a translator into something cold and mechanical. You comply. You survive. Elias raised his hands slowly. No sudden movements. No resistance. Brim stepped forward immediately, placing himself between Elias and the intruders. The growl deepened, vibrating through his chest. The lead raider tilted its head slightly, studying the dog. Animal. Irrelevant. Elias didn't respond. He didn't argue. Arguments required leverage, and right now, he had none. The shot came without warning. A brief flicker of blue, a soft crack like something snapping under tension. Brim dropped. Just like that. No sound, no struggle. 1 second standing, the next. Gone. Elias didn't move. He didn't react. He didn't even blink. But something inside him shifted. Not anger, not grief. Clarity. His gaze stayed on the floor, on the still body. The raiders watched him closely, waiting, measuring. They expected something. They expected something. They always did. Fear. Rage. Collapse. They got nothing. Sit. The leader said again. Elias obeyed. He lowered himself to the cold metal floor beside Brim. Movement slow and controlled. His hand rested gently on the dog's side. Still warm. No movement. Hugh kept his face blank. A flat wall. Inside. Everything accelerated. Not emotion. Systems. Corridors. Power. Routing. Manual overrides. Hidden redundancies. The Gravemarch wasn't just a cargo ship. It was 22 years of habits and adjustments. Elias had rewritten parts of it, piece by piece. Not because he expected this day, because he didn't trust systems. He didn't understand. And he understood this ship completely. The raiders spread out across the hold. They moved efficiently, opening containers, scanning cargo, checking walls. They weren't rushing, they weren't tense. They believed this was already over. That was their mistake. One of them stayed near Elias, weapon loosely angled in his direction, watching him carefully. The others worked without concern. Elias noticed the one watching him. Immediately. The careful one. The one not fully convinced. Good. He marked that one. First, his fingers shifted slightly against his palm. A small movement. Nervous. Fidgeting. Human. Tap. Pause. Tap. A. Sequence. A signal. The stylus hidden in his sleeve responded, transmitting a short-range command to internal systems he had personally modified years ago. Deep inside the ship, something woke up. Lights flickered once. One raider looked up. Power fluctuation. Old ship, another replied dismissively. Elias almost smiled. Doors began locking. Not all at once. One at a time. Soft clicks, easy to ignore if you weren't paying attention. Air. Circulation adjusted. Minor pressure shifts. Subtle, but real. The careful raider noticed. Its weapon lifted slightly. Elias kept breathing slow and steady. "You should not move," the raider said. "I'm not," Elias replied calmly. The gravity flickered. A brief drop. Then it returned. One of the raiders stumbled. Another muttered something sharp. Now the balance shifted. Not enough to panic them yet, but enough to make them think. Elias looked up for the first time, meeting the leader's gaze. "You boarded the wrong ship," he said quietly. The leader stepped forward, weapon rising. "Stop." Elias didn't. His fingers tapped once more. The final command. The ship responded. Everything changed at once. Lights died completely. Darkness swallowed the hold. Gravity cut out, sending loose objects drifting. Bulkhead doors slammed down violently, sealing sections and splitting the raiders apart. One shattered. Another fired blindly. Blue flashes lighting the darkness for fractions of seconds. Elias stood, slowly, deliberately, in the dark. He moved without hesitation. He didn't need light. He had memory. He reached the wall, panel without searching, pried it open. Manual override. Old systems. No automation. No delays. His systems. He flipped the switch. Air began venting from one sealed section. Not explosive. Not lethal. Control dropping just enough to strain lungs, to force panic, to break rhythm. Breathing changed. Calm became urgency. Urgency became fear. The careful raider tried to regroup, voice sharp, issuing commands in a language Elias didn't understand. It didn't matter. Coordination was already broken. Then a sound. Behind him. Soft. Familiar. Elias turned. Brim's chest rose. Once. Then. Again. Alive. The stun shot hadn't killed him. Just dropped him. Elias closed his eyes briefly. A single breath leaving him. "Good boy," he whispered. One raider forced through. A partially sealed door. Desperate. Weapon raised. Brim stood. Unsteady, but upright. The growl returned. Lower. Now. Heavier. The raider hesitated just for a second. That was enough. Elias triggered the final lock. Complete system override. Every door sealed. Every control locked out. Every pathway restricted. The ship wasn't under attack anymore. It was under control. His control. Silence. Returned. But this time, it was different. Not waiting. Resolved. Hours later. Patrol ships found the Gravemarch drifting in open space. Systems stable and intact. They boarded cautiously, expecting damage, expecting chaos. They found none. Raider sat restrained in separate compartments, unconscious but alive. No cargo missing, no structural damage beyond the breach in the center of the hold. Under dim emergency lighting, Elias sat on the floor with his back against a container. Brim rested beside him, awake, alert, tail moving slowly against the metal. An officer stepped forward, scanning the scene, confusion clear on his face. "What happened here?" Elias scratched Brim behind the ear, thinking for a moment. Then he looked up and said quietly, "They made a mistake." The officer frowned. "What kind of mistake?" Elias paused, then answered with the same calm tone they thought hurting. "Something small would make me easier to control." He glanced down at Brim, then back up. It didn't. Silence followed. Not the wrong kind. This time. Just understanding. The first warning didn't come from the ship. It didn't come from sensors. It didn't come from radar. It came from Echo, pilot. Mara Kess noticed it instantly because she had learned something most pilots never bothered to learn. Systems lie. Animals don't go. Stood up in the middle of flight. No hesitation, no confusion. Just immediate awareness. His ears locked. Forward his muscles stiffened. His tail stopped moving completely. Then came the growl. Low. Heavy. Controlled. Not panic. Not fear. A warning. Mara's hand froze on the control panel. She didn't look at the instruments yet. She looked at Echo. Because Echo had never been wrong. Not once in 5 years of deep space freight runs. "What is it?" she whispered. No answer. He never answered, but he didn't need to. Something was wrong. Something invisible. Something approaching. The Night Runner drifted through a quiet corridor of space between relay stations. No military escort, no combat systems, just cargo delivery routes, and a pilot who trusted instincts more than automated warnings. It was supposed to be routine. Routine meant safe. Safe meant predictable. Predictable meant survivable. But space never respected assumptions. The impact came. Suddenly. Not random. Not debris-controlled. Precise. Precise. A docking strike with surgical timing. Mara leaned back. slowly in her seat, no panic yet, just realization forming. We've got company. The hull didn't breach slowly. It shattered. Cutting charges tore through reinforced plating like it was thin foil. 3 impact points, 3 entry vectors, professional. Boarding pattern. Not pirates, not scavengers. Raiders. 3 figures dropped into the corridor. Smooth landing, no wasted movement. Armor, sleek and dark plating, no insignias. Their weapons were already raised. Pilot, one voice said through a distorted translator. Remain still. Compliance ensures survival. Mara raised her hands immediately. Slow, controlled. Eyes wide, breathing shallow. Fear performance. Activated. Perfect. But inside her head, everything sharpened. Her mind stopped reacting. Emotionally it started calculating. Echo moved instantly. He stepped between Mara and the intruders. No aggression, just presence. Protection. One raider glanced at him. Animal detected. Dismissive tone like Echo was irrelevant. That was mistake number 1. Echo growled louder. Deep. Vibration through his chest. Warning, escalating. The nearest raider didn't hesitate. Weapon fired. A blue pulse struck. Echoed directly. He collapsed instantly. Mara flinched. Violently. Perfect timing. Controlled reaction. She dropped slightly in her chair. Hands shaking. Voice breaking. No, please. The raiders didn't care. They moved past her. Already assuming control. Already confident. Too confident. Inside that confidence was vulnerability. Echo wasn't dead. The pulse was a sedation-round military-grade non-lethal containment. Temporary shutdown. Mara recognized it. Immediately. Which meant one thing. They weren't here to kill. They were here to control. And control meant they planned to leave witnesses. That made everything worse for them. She stayed still. Let them believe she was broken. Let them believe she was irrelevant. The raiders split immediately. One went to navigation. One to cargo systems. One stayed behind. Her watching, guarding, Mara noticed everything. Every step. Every angle. Every assumption. They were organized, efficient, systematic, which meant predictable. And predictability was something she could use. Her fingers slowly moved under the console. Small adjustments. Barely visible inputs, no. Alarms triggered. No warnings flashed. The ship's navigation route shifted slightly. Not enough to detect. Not enough to correct. But enough to matter later. She redirected trajectory toward a radiation-heavy drift zone. Naturally unstable. Avoidable with proper navigation. Invisible if you weren't paying attention. And they weren't. Cargo secure. One raider reported. Begin extraction protocol. Mara kept her breathing uneven. Kept her shoulders trembling slightly. Kept the illusion alive. Inside her mind. Calculation accelerated. Step 1. Survive initial breach. Step 2. Isolate intruders. Step 3. Activate environmental disadvantage. Step 1 was already complete. Echo twitched. Mara noticed instantly, but did not react. Did not look. Did not acknowledge. The raiders didn't see it. They were focused on systems. Focused on cargo. Focused on control. They didn't understand that control was already slipping. Echo's breathing changed. Slowly. Returning from sedation. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The ship drifted deeper into the radiation field. Warning systems. Began subtle alerts. Soft at first. Easily ignored. Minor interference detected, one raider said. Environmental fluctuation. Another replied. Mara almost smiled. Almost. Echo opened his eyes. No movement yet. Just awareness. Returning. Slow. Controlled predatory awareness. Mara felt it. Not visually. Instinctively. Like a shared signal through years of trust. Echo was back. And everything was about to change. The first disappearance happened at 017. Ship time. A raider entered cargo corridor section. B. Did not return. No sound, no alarm, no signal. Just absence. The others noticed minutes later. Confusion first. Then hesitation. Then unease. What happened to section 2? No answer. Mara stayed. Seated. Still acting. Still trembling slightly. Still the harmless pilot. But her eyes had changed. Sharper. Now focused. Echo moved again. Silent. Precise. Not attacking. Disrupting. Isolating. One by one. Systems began failing in ways that weren't random. Lights flickered in patterns. Doors sealed in sequences. Sensors misreported movement. The ship itself was becoming hostile to intruders. Not to her. Never to her. Because Echo knew her, and Echo knew them. The raiders split up. Mistake. Always a mistake in unknown environments. The ship entered full radiation drift zone. Alarms escalated. This time unavoidable. Shields degrading. External interference increasing. Now, panic began. Slow. Then spreading. Then cracking their control. One raider turned toward Mara. You did this. Mara tilted her head slightly. Fake fear still active. Eyes wide, voice trembling. I didn't, please. I don't understand. The raider raised its weapon. Echo stepped into view behind it. Not fast. Not aggressive. Just present. Alive. Certain. Silence dropped instantly. The raider froze. Impossible. Echo growled once. Steep. Final. Then moved. Not toward the raider, around it, cutting escape routes. Cutting options. Cutting certainty. Mara exhaled slowly. Now. It was no longer a rescue situation. It was containment. The raiders realized too. Late they were inside a controlled system. Not a ship. A response field. One designed by instinct. Not programming. Echo wasn't attacking them. He was removing them from the equation. One by one. Without noise. Without chaos. Without warning. Mara finally stood. Slowly. No fear now. No act. Only control. You ignored the only warning you had, she said softly. The raider turned sharply. You're still alive. Mara smiled slightly. Cold.com. Certain. Because I was never the target, she said. Pause. Then. You were. Echo stepped forward again. The last raider attempted retreat, but doors sealed instantly behind him. Ahead of him. Above him. No exit, no escape, no control. Radiation levels spiked. Ship systems destabilized further. Not destruction. Precision shutdown. Exactly controlled, exactly timed. 30-8 minutes later. Patrol ships arrived. They found a drifting vessel. Minimal damage. No structural collapse. 3 raiders alive. Psychologically broken. Repeating the same statements. The animal moved. We didn't see it. It was already behind us. Mara sat calmly in the cockpit. Echo beside her. Alert. Restored. Alive. A patrol officer asked the only question that mattered. What happened here? Mara looked at Echo. Then at the officer. Nothing special, she said. Paused, then added, just my dog. Doing his job. The first lie wasn't spoken. It was printed on paper and stamped into existence before anyone stepped aboard. The cargo manifest glowed on Jonah Hale's console in clean corporate font. Medical relief supplies, priority transport, non-restricted. Jonah didn't smile at it. He didn't trust it. He had learned long ago that in deep space, truth was never written in bold letters. It was always hidden in small warnings no one read. He leaned back in his pilot chair. Old metal creaking under him, eyes half focused on the endless black outside the forward viewport. The ship, Wraithline, drifted through silent corridor space between relay stations. No escorts, no patrols, just distance and emptiness, pretending to be safety. Jonah had done this run hundreds of times. Cargo in, cargo out. No questions, no problems. That was the job. That was survival. But this run felt different. The silence wasn't normal. Engine hum silence. It was heavy, like something was listening from inside the walls. And then there was Atlas. Jonah didn't need instruments to know. Something was wrong. He just looked at the dog. Atlas was standing now. Completely still, locked facing cargo bay 9B. The dog wasn't barking yet. That was worse. Atlas only went silent. Like that when he already knew something, most systems didn't. He was a large black and brown military breed, old scars across his shoulder, one torn ear, eyes sharp enough to cut steel. He had survived wars, Jonah. Never talked about and never wanted to remember. He didn't move. He didn't blink. He just stared at the sealed cargo unit like he was staring back. Jonah exhaled slowly. You feel it too, huh? Atlas didn't respond, but the low vibration in his throat started. Not a growl of fear. A warning signal. Calm. Controlled. Dead serious. Jonah stood up slowly and walked down the corridor, toward cargo bay 9B. The ship lights flickered slightly as he passed, just for a fraction of a second. Like the system itself hesitated. He stopped in front of the container. Black alloy. Sealed. No markings except one code strip. OMEGA. 7 clearance required. Jonah stared at it longer than he should have. Then he looked at Atlas again. The dog's body was rigid. Yeah, Jonah whispered. I don't like it either. He should have walked away. He didn't. 3 days into deep transit, everything changed. Not gradually, not subtly. Instantly. The hull shuddered like something had punched reality itself. No warning, no distress signal, just impact. Docking strike confirmed, the ship AI announced calmly too. Late Jonah snapped upright. What the hell was that? Second impact. Then 6. Entry points. Focused geometrical breach pattern. This wasn't piracy. This was extraction boarding. Atlas stood instantly, growling, now louder, sharper, filling the corridor with vibration. Not fear but rage. Recognition, threat, confirmed. Alarms finally screamed, but they were late, way too late. The hole tore open, in for clean surgical cuts, like the ship had been mapped beforehand. Metal screamed, pressure equalized, and then they came in for figures dropped into corridor like gravity. Didn't matter. Armor, no insignias, smooth helmets, no emotion, no hesitation. They moved like professionals, not raiders. Jonah raised both hands, immediately calm voice steady. All right, no resistance. You want cargo, take it. But his eyes were already calculating. This wasn't robbery, this was retrieval. One of them stepped forward, voice filtered mechanical. Cargo vessel identified, compliance ensures survival. Where is Unit 9B? Jonah blinked slowly. Medical supplies, mid-deck storage, lie clean, smooth, practiced. But the soldier tilted his head. You are lying. Jonah gave a tired smile. Then you already know more than me. That's when Atlas moved. He stepped forward, placing himself directly between Jonah and the intruders. Elias dropped the soldier, looked down, animal interference detected. Weapon raised. Jonah shouted WAIT. But the shot already fired blue. Pulse impact. Atlas collapsed since it did. Jonah froze, not because of shot, because he recognized the tech. It wasn't lethal, it was containment stasis, military grade neural shutdown. Jonah whispered. They want him alive. That changed everything. The intruders ignored him, moved deeper into ship split formation. Clean tactical spread toward cargo, toward bridge, one holding Jonah, but Jonah wasn't reacting anymore. Something inside him had shifted. Not sheer clarity. Slowly lowered his hands, sat down on floor like he had accepted defeat, but inside his sleeve his fingers were already moving. Maintained interface activation. Low-level command bypass. Silent ping. The ship responded slowly, too slowly, like something waking up after long sleep. Cargo bay lights shifted, subtle and out. Flicker tracking. Jonah noticed instantly. Oh no, then corrected. Oh yes, cargo system wasn't passive anymore. Whistling. The Cantina 9B status changed. FROM sealed to LASTNA. Smiled faintly. You idiots didn't board a ship. He whispered. You boarded a reaction system. Atlas twitched on floor, still alive, barely, but sensing Jonah. Felt eye to connection forming. Human biological interface linked with dormant system architecture. He swallowed. You were never cargo, were you, boy? The intruders split further. One vanished into corridor 2, one toward cargo, one toward bridge. Perfect. Predictable formation system logged. Everything, movement, heat, path, trajectory, prediction grid activated. Stood slowly. Now no panic, just certainty. You want the cargo, he said softly. You should have read what it was guarding. First disappearance happened at 4:02. Corridor B. Unit lost no signal, no body, no sound, just absence. Intruders noticed. Too late. What happened to Unit 2? No answer. Jonah didn't move. The ship was now responding independently. Atlas opened eyes, slightly weak but aware, and the system reacted. Lights stabilized, doors sealed. Before movement, not after. Before prediction. Locked. One intruder fired at wall. Nothing happened. System ignored aggression. Prioritized containment. Geometry. Intruder panic rising. This isn't a cargo ship system. Jonah replied calmly. No. Pause. It's a decision system. Atlas stood slowly now, shaking but upright. That was enough. The ship recognized him. Fully authorization. Handshake initiated. Container 9B unlocked. Internally no command required, just recognition system. Spoke without sound. STRUCTURA. Link CO, NFIRMD. Jonah exhaled. Slowly. There it is. The intruders tried regrouping, too late. Corridors were already collapsing into controlled maze architecture. No exits, no randomness, no escape probabilities. Jonah walked towards central console, full of calm now. You came for cargo, he said, but you triggered something that doesn't like being opened. Atlas stood beside him. The ship responded instantly. Escalation phase but not destruction. Containment. Judgment protocol. Radiation fields. Increased corridor reconfiguration. Active movement prediction. Look, Tuan. Intruder screamed. Overcomes. This is not possible. Jonah said quietly. It is. Pause. You just weren't supposed to see it, Atlas growled. One final signal and the system executed. Final containment. Logic not. Killing not. Destruction control T8. Minutes later, patrol ships arrived. They found a drifting freight, no hull, collapse, no explosion, no distress. Just silence inside. 3 intruders alive, mentally fractured, repeating same phrases. It moved before we saw it. It wasn't reacting. It was already deciding. Jonah sat in cockpit, Atlas beside him, fully awake now, calm. Again, patrol officer entered ship. What happened here? Jonah looked at Atlas, then at cargo bay, then at empty silence, and said, I think we delivered something that wasn't supposed to be delivered. Pause. Nick decided we were the mistake. And Elias and I, they thought they boarded a cargo ship, but what they actually stepped into was a system that had already written their ending before they ever arrived. The first thing Captain Rourke said when they asked him about his past was simple. I don't do that anymore, but space doesn't care what people do. Anymore, space only cares what they used to be and what they are willing to become again. Rourke sat in the cockpit of the freight ship Iron Hollow, a retired military transport repurposed for civilian cargo runs, the kind of ship nobody respected but everyone survived on. It was old, scratched, patched, but reliable like him. He kept it that way on purpose. Because perfection gets you killed faster than damage ever will. Behind him lay Titan, a massive warbred canine unit, half-cyber augmented military-grade survivor of conflict zones. Rourke didn't call him pet, he never called him anything other than Titan, because names like that were earned, not given. Titan lay quietly, but never fully relaxed, his eyes always scanning, always calculating. Rourke rubbed his hands over his face, tired not physically but mentally, the kind of tired that comes from years of choosing not to remember things you still remember anyway. They were halfway through a routine cargo run between relay stations. Nothing special, nothing dangerous, nothing that should have mattered, and that was always the exact moment when things went wrong. Titan lifted his head before anything happened. No warning sirens, no radar alerts, just instinct. Rourke noticed instantly. He leaned forward in his chair slowly. What is it, boy? Titan's body tensed, muscles locking, eyes fixed forward. Corridor 3. Something was already wrong before systems confirmed anything. Rourke checked sensors. Nothing abnormal, no heat signatures, no warp anomalies. Just silence, too clean, too perfect. And that meant approach vectors were masked, and that meant they were already inside before detection warning came. Too late. Unauthorized docking detected. Hull breach. Multiple entry points. Rourke exhaled slowly, not surprise, just confirmation. They had been found. Titan's growl began low, decontrolled. Not panic, but memory. Something in him remembered war before Rourke even did. First breach happened like a knife. Through metal, precise, silent, controlled. 4 figures dropped into corridor, armored, no insignias, black tactical suits, helmets sealed. No faces, visible weapons already raised. They didn't search, they already knew where to go. Rourke raised his hands immediately, calm, slow movements, no resistance. Voice steady. All right, we don't want trouble, take what you need. Titan stepped forward instantly. Rourke didn't even call him, he just knew. Titan's position changed between Rourke and intruders. Protective, not aggressive yet, but ready first. Intruder tilted head, animal detected, weapon raised. Rourke shouted, "Wait!" But the shot already fired. Blue! Pulse impact. Titan collapsed instantly. Silence hit harder than sound. Rourke didn't move, not because he was shocked, but because something inside him went very, very still, like a switch had flipped in his mind. The intruders moved past him, ignoring him, now focused on cargo bay. Rourke slowly lowered his hands, sat down on the metal floor, legs crossed like surrender posture. But inside his mind, something entirely different activated. This wasn't fear. This was memory returning, tactical awareness. Systems analysis, battlefield cognition, military mind resurfacing. After years of suppression, he watched them carefully. 3 moved toward cargo, 2 toward bridge, 1 stayed on him. Standard split, predictable formation. He almost smiled, not humor. Something called a recognition. They were good, but not good enough. He had trained people like them once. Titan twitched on the floor. Rourke saw it immediately. Not dead, not even close. Stasis, pulse, military-grade suppression, not lethal, control-based. Technology, meaning they didn't want destruction, they wanted access. And that meant Titan was not just a companion. Titan was key asset, linked system integration unit. Rourke slowly shifted his position, subtly adjusting his body weight, hand slipping. Undersleeve, interface patch, hidden military command. Layers still embedded from his service, years old. Protocols still active, he had never removed them. Because you never truly remove war from soldiers, only bury it deep enough to forget where it is. His ship systems flickered slightly, not noticeable to intruders, but Rourke saw it. Internal diagnostics, shifting, something waking up. Iron Hollow wasn't just cargo ship. He knew that now it was modified defense architecture disguised as freight vessel. Experimental layer hidden under civilian certification, he whispered softly under his breath. So, that's what this is, cargo. Bay lights shifted faintly. Corridor doors began to lock automatically, but not randomly. They were reacting. Intruders noticed. Tule one shouted something in alien language. Rourke didn't need translation. He already knew they were confused systems, were not behaving as expected. Titan twitched again. Rourke felt a connection stabilizing between neural interface and ship. Defense grid. Titan wasn't just recovering, he was synchronizing with system architecture. Rourke stood slowly now. No panic, no hesitation. Just controlled certainty. You picked the wrong ship, he said softly. First intruder fired a console, nothing happened. System ignored attack, prioritizing structural containment. Second intruder shouted, system override failing. What is this place? Rourke replied quietly, it's not a place, it's a memory network. Ship shifted, corridor layout changed, doors sealed before. Movement prediction grid activated. Titan stood fully now, still weak, but synchronized, eyes glowing faintly from neural overlay interface. He wasn't just alive anymore, he was integrated. System recognized him. Command. Node partial access granted. Intruders split again. Panic rising, formation collapsing, predictability breaking. Rourke walked towards central corridor. Calmly, not rushing, not fighting, just observing like old battlefield commander watching enemy realize. They already lost before engagement even finished. One intruder disappeared, no sound, no trace, just gone. System containment logic executed silently. Another screamed, overcomes. This is impossible. Rourke responded, no, it's just unfamiliar. Titan moved. Now not attacking, but positioning, blocking, escape routes, locking, geometry. System enhanced his perception. Intruders realized too late, they were not inside a ship anymore, they were inside adaptive containment intelligence architecture, reacting in real time, learning them, predicting them, closing them out of probability space. Rourke stopped in the center of corridor, looked around softly. You think this is boarding, he said. Pause. No, this is correction. Titan growled. System responded, structural reinforcement activated. Corridors began compressing, not physically but logically. Routes collapsing into dead ends. Intruders tried to regroup to slow. System already 3 steps ahead. Titan, fully synchronized, now moved like extension of ship itself. Not animal, not machine, hybrid decision node. Rourke closed his eyes, briefly remembering training, remembering war, remembering what it meant when systems stopped being tools and became instincts. This ship wasn't built to transport cargo, it was built to evaluate threats and remove them without escalation. Intruders screamed, we are not enemies. Rourke opened eyes slowly. That's the problem. You didn't get to choose that. Titan lunged. Not violently but decisively. Final containment trigger initiated. System locked, all movement paths, no escape. Probability remained. 30 minutes later, patrol ships arrived. They found a drifting freighter, no damage. No explosion, no distress, just silence. Inside, 3 intruders alive, mentally shattered, repeating. Same thing I was already thinking before we entered. Patrol officer entered ship. Solely careful, what happened here? Rourke stood beside. Titan hand resting lightly on him now, fully recovered, calm, alive, synchronized. He looked at officer, then at ship, then at empty corridor and said quietly, they boarded a soldier and woke up a system. Pause, then softer. I used to be military, but apparently so does the ship endline. They thought they were boarding cargo transport, but what they actually triggered was something that remembered how to win before they even arrived. The first thing anyone noticed about the ship Athena's grace was not its size, or its cargo, or even its outdated hull design. It was the silence. Because this ship did not feel empty. It felt like it was watching. Mara then stood in the command seat, with her hands lightly resting on the controls, not gripping, not tense, just balanced, like someone who had flown through worse storms than space could ever offer. A face was calm, but her eyes were not calm. They were scanning constantly, because Mara did not trust silence in space. Silence was just danger waiting for a permission to begin. Beside her sat the system interface unit, a biometric monitoring AI designed for deep cargo runs. It tracked stress levels, heart rates, micro-muscle tension, fear responses, everything that made humans predictable. Mara hated it, but she tolerated it because it kept her alive. The ship drifted between relay lanes carrying medical supply crates for outer colonies. Nothing exciting, nothing profitable enough to attract attention, and that alone made Mara suspicious. Her dog Echo lay at her feet. Echo was not just a dog, he was military-bred, recon canine, enhanced neural response training, bioadaptive reflex conditioning. He had survived 2 war zones and 1 pirate mutiny before Mara adopted him. Echo suddenly lifted his head. No bark, no growl, just stillness. Mara noticed immediately. Her fingers paused on the control panel. What is it? Echo didn't answer, of course, but his body shifted slightly, weight forward, eyes locked toward corridor access point. 1 second later, ship AI flagged minor anomaly, sensor drift, corridor 3. Mara leaned forward slowly. Echo never reacted to false alarms. Boarding probability increased from 0 to 7%. Mara whispered, "That is not 0. Echo stood up now, fully alert, tail still, ears locked forward. No panic, just certainty. Mara exhaled. Pirate Sea said softly, not surprised. Just disappointed. Because she knew this pattern too well. They waited for ships like hers, isolated, predictable, slow response routes. Athena's grace was not supposed to be valuable, but Mara knew better. Every cargo ship was valuable if no one was watching boarding. Impact came without warning, not loud, not dramatic, just precise, magnetic latch breach for intrusion signatures. Mara immediately triggered silent protocol lights. Dimmed ship shifted into low visibility mode. Echo moved instantly, positioning himself between Mara and corridor entrance. He had done this before. Mara didn't panic. She never panicked. She played weak on purpose. She opened com channel and allowed distress tone to leak into system. Monitoring. They want cargo, she whispered. Fine, let them think we are. Easy entry breach confirmed for intruders entered corridor. They were not amateurs. They were coordinated armored light tactical suits. Face-covered weapon suppression rifles, low energy, non-lethal, designed for control, not destruction. They wanted clean theft. Mara stayed seated, hands visible, breathing slow. Echo growled once low, controlled warning. Then it happened. One intruder raised weapon and fired not at Mara. At Echo. Blue stun pulse hit him directly. Echo collapsed instantly. Mara froze, not because she was afraid, but because something inside her went very still. The intruders moved forward. One spoke in distorted voice. Stay calm, no resistance, no harm. Mara looked at Echo on the floor. He was not moving. System reading confirmed neural suppression, not fatal but immobilized. She nodded. Slowly understanding their mistake, they thought she was breaking, but Mara was not breaking. Mara was calculating. She lowered her gaze. Slightly heightened expression, then activated secondary ship layer hidden beneath cargo systems. Athena's grace was not a normal freighter. It was experimental, adaptive logistics. Vessel built after colony wars for unpredictable supply routes. Where piracy was expected, not avoided, the ship had never been fully declassified. Mara knew this because she had once been military before she became a pilot. She tapped one sequence under console, subtle, invisible command. Echo's vitals were still stable, but something else started changing. Ship intelligence layer activated, slowly, unnoticed at first. Corridor lights flickered. Intruders paused, looking up. Mara whispered quietly, "You should not have touched my dog." The ship responded, not verbally but structurally. Doors shifted. Slightly, not closing yet. Just repositioning corridors, re-evaluating layout. Probability mapping began. Intruders did not notice. Mara did. She stood slowly, raising her hands like surrender. Good actors always play their role perfectly. Echo's neural implant, however, was not fully disabled. The stun pulse had triggered partial activation. Instead of shutting him down, it had linked him to ship interface. Mara felt it through biometric feedback. Echo was waking up differently. He was not just recovering, he was integrating. Mara's heart rate spiked just slightly. AI detected anomaly. Fear levels, not increasing. Aggression, increasing. Confusion, rising. Intruders moved toward cargo bay, unaware they were already inside adaptive system field. Mara walked slowly behind them, not resisting, letting them believe control was theirs. Then she smiled. Just slightly. Because she knew Athena's grace had started learning ship systems are passive until they are not. Intruders reached cargo vaults, opened containers. Empty. Confusion began. One shouted, "Where is inventory?" Mara spoke softly behind them. "You are inside inventory." They turned to slow. Echo woke fully in system layer. Not physically first, but mentally. His perception expanded through ship sensors. He saw them. All positions. Heat signatures, movement predictions, escape probabilities. He was no longer just a dog. He was a node inside the ship intelligence network. Mara felt its stabilization complete. Echo now linked. Intruders realized too late. Doors behind them sealed. Not locked, shifted, no longer accessible. Corridors no longer aligned. One intruder fired a panel. Nothing happened. Ship ignored him. Mara spoke again gently. "You trained for predictable ships. This one is learning." Echo moved now through ship network. Not physically first, but spatially guiding systems. Corridors adjusted, like living muscle, cutting off exits, reducing safe routes. Intruders. Panic escalated, but systems escalated faster. Mara walked into corridor. Calmly, voice low, almost sad. "You shudge." Something that was not just alive. Echo appeared physically now, recovered, but different. Eyes reflecting faint interface glow. He did not bark. He did not growl. He simply looked at them, and the ship responded all at once. Lights dimmed. Gravity subtly shifted. Lock-in, balance, disruption. Intrusion became harder. Breathing space, tighter, not lethal, just controlled. Mara whispered, "Last chance, leave." Now no one moved because they still believed fear was on their side, but fear was no longer theirs. Echo stepped forward. One intruder fired again, but ship predicted it. Weapon jammed mid-trigger. Mara did not look away. "This is where you stop understanding," she said softly. Echo moved again, not violent, precise, disabling movement, targeting limbs. Weapon systems non-lethal, but absolute control. Intruders collapsed one by one, not dead, not destroyed, just completely neutralized by environment itself. Mara stood still, watching as silence returned, but it was not the same silence as before. Now silence felt awake. She knelt beside Echo, placing hand on his head. "Ship interface stabilized, system report complete, threat neutralized," but something remained. Mara looked around softly. No relief, no celebration, just understanding. Ships do not feel fear. They simulate it, and Grace had just learned how the ship was already dying long before anyone tried to attack it. The rusted freighter Wonderlight groaned with every shifting gravity, every pulse of engine, every vibration through its fractured frame. Captain Elias Mercer never denied it. He even accepted it the way a man accepts old age, not with resistance, but with familiarity, because Wonderlight was not just a ship, it was history, layered in metal, and failure and survival. Elias sat in the cockpit, staring at the cracked navigation display, while the ship drifted through a quiet trade corridor that no one bothered to patrol anymore, because nothing valuable was supposed to survive here, except things that did not want to be found. Beside him lay Rusty, a worn-out cargo dog with patchy fur and one cybernetic leg that clicked softly whenever he shifted. Rusty was not fast, not strong, not young, but he had survived 6 freighters and 2 mutinies, and that alone made him more qualified than most captains. Elias reached down, scratching behind Rusty's ear. "You still breathing, old friend?" Rusty blinked slowly, as if offended by the question, but stayed close. Then the alarms did not scream, they whispered, which was worse. "Intrusion detected, external docking. Unauthorized." Elias exhaled slowly, not surprised, just confirmation. They always came when ships were weak as pirates. Raiders, scavengers, same difference for boarding signatures. Entering through porthole, no resistance required. They thought one was already dead. Elias stood, slowly adjusting his shoulder. No panic, no rush, just old man movement, tired but precise. Rusty's body shifted instantly, alert now, not barking, just sensing something had changed. The boarding team entered like professionals. Not loud, not chaotic, controlled for figures, armored, light, tactical gear, weapons, suppressed energy rifles. They did not look at Elias first. They looked at the ship because that was their mistake. They assumed the ship was the prize. Elias raised his hand slightly, calm voice. "No trouble, take what you want." One of them laughed under helmet. "Come, easy job." Then another motion toward Rusty. "Animal neutralized." Elias didn't even react fast enough to stop it. The shot hit Rusty clean, suppression. Pulse not lethal, but instant drop. Rusty collapsed immediately. No sound, just weight hitting metal floor. Silence came after that, but it was different. Silence heavier. Elias looked down at Rusty. No anger, no shouting, just stillness. That kind of stillness. That means something inside has already changed. Pirates moved deeper into cargo bay, laughing, communicating, confident. This was routine to them. Easy ship, easy crew, easy payday. Elias stayed standing, watching them go, then slowly knelt beside Rusty, placing a hand on his side, feeling the faint pulse still there. Alive, just shut down, not dead yet. Something inside. Elias recalculated, not emotionally but structurally. He had built this ship. He knew every weak point to every bypass, every hidden system, every illegal modification. Wonderlight was not supposed to still be functional, but it was more than functional, it was unpredictable. Elias whispered softly, "All right then," and stood up. Pirates had already reached mid-corridor when the first change happened. Lights flickered, once subtle, almost invisible. Ventilation shifted, pressure balance recalculated, corridors adjusted by millimeters. Enough to change familiarity, but not enough to alert immediate suspicion. Elias walked slowly toward the maintenance panel, his movements calm, deliberate, like a man simply checking systems, but his hand was already entering old override sequences. Codes not used in civilian registry systems, buried deep military-era architecture. Wonderlight was not just rust and metal, it was a rebuilt war transport disguised as cargo freighter, and Elias Mercer was one of its original engineers. The ship responded slowly at first, like waking up after long sleep. Structural memory. Activated corridor mapping. Unstable rerouting. Pirates noticed something when one of them turned a corner and did not arrive. Where expected, confusion started small, whereas cargo bay 1 said another checked scanner. Nothing changed, but something felt wrong. Elias' voice came through internal com, not loud, just present. This ship was never just a freighter. Silence. Pirates froze, not understanding what changed. Rusty twitched on the floor, recovery beginning. Neural dampers wearing off. Elias kept walking forward, now not hiding anymore because hiding was no longer necessary. The ship was responding. Now slowly shifting, adapting, remembering itself. Doors that should have been opened, closed doors that should have been locked opened. Corridors restructured like a living maze. Pirates split unintentionally. Communication. Breaking interference. Increasing. Elias reached central control spine of ship, placed his palm on cold metal surface, and whispered, "Wake up, Wanderlight." Light surged faintly, systems renewed. Not fully, but enough. Pirates began realizing they were no longer moving through fixed space. One corridor became 3 possible routes depending on movement prediction. Wanderlight was adapting to them as a system evaluating threat response like intelligence rather than machinery. Rusty stood slowly behind Elias. Unsteady but awake now, not fully recovered but synchronized with ship. Filled his cybernetic leg, clicked once, then stabilized. Elias smiled slightly, not joy, something older, recognition. Pirates finally understood this was not resistance, this was correction. One fired at a wall, nothing happened, energy absorbed, redirected systems. Neutralized aggression. Elias spoke quietly. You boarded a dead ship, you woke up something that remembers. How to survive. Corridors tightened, movement restricted. Not physically but logically. Routes collapsing, escape probability decreasing. Pirates panicked now, firing randomly, but ship was already ahead of them. Rusty moved first, not attacking, but guiding. Blocking paths, herding intruders into containment zones like instinctive system response. Elias didn't command anymore, he just observed. Wanderlight was doing what it had always been designed to do, survive at any cost. Pirates tried retreat, impossible. Exit routes sealed, final corridor opened, leading them back to Central Bay, exactly where Elias stood, waiting, not threatening, just present. One pirate shouted, "What are you?" Elias answered simply, "The last thing you should have ignored." Silence returned. Heavy final. Wanderlight completed containment cycle systems. Stabilized intruders alive, disarmed, fully trapped. Rusty sat beside Elias, again breathing steady, now recovered. Elias looked at him and said quietly, "Still got it, boy." Rusty blinked, as if agreeing. Outside the ship, drifted alone, broken but alive inside. It was no longer just a freighter, it was something that learned that even rust remembers how to fight. Eon Detha. First lie everyone believed about the ship. Ardent Crown was that it was just a standard cargo freighter, nothing special, nothing classified, nothing dangerous. But lies in space do not stay hidden for long, especially when something inside starts acting like it knows more than it should. Captain Elias Rourke never trusted that ship, not fully, not ever, because he had seen too many normal ships turn into graves without warning. And the only thing he trusted more than systems was instinct, and instinct told him the dog was wrong, not broken, not sick, just wrong. In a way that didn't fit anything natural. The dog's name was Canine Unit Designation Axe-17, but Elias called him Ash. Because names like Axe-17 belonged to machines, and Ash behaved like something between machine and memory. Ash did not bark like normal dogs, he observed, he calculated. He reacted precisely for something that was supposed to be instinct-based, and that alone had kept Elias alive for 3 years of deep space runs. Ash always knew things before senses confirmed them, always positioned himself between Elias and unknown spaces, always watched corners that did not exist yet in human perception. The ship drifted through neutral trade corridor. When the first anomaly appeared, silent. Boarding signature, no warning, no transmission. Just physical docking, breach for intrusion points. Elias did not panic, he never did. Ash stood up instantly before alarms even triggered, and that was the first real confirmation something was wrong. Systems were late. Ash was early. Boarding confirmed. Before visual contact, intruders entered silently, armored suits, low profile, tactical design, no insignia, no identity, just function for figures. Moved like professionals, not pirates, not raiders, something worse, trained operators. Elias raised hands, slowly showing compliance. Ash did not growl, did not bark. He tilted his head like he was reading them like text. One intruder pointed weapon at Ash. Neutralized biological asset. Elias said nothing. Ash was hit immediately. Blue suppression pulse, no. Sound just drop. Ash collapsed instantly, and that was the moment everything changed. Not emotionally but structurally, because Elias saw something under Ash's fur. When he fell faint, light pattern, not blood, not injury, but interface glow hidden beneath biological layer. Elias exhaled slowly, understanding arriving too late. Ash was not a dog. Ash was a system node disguised as living organism, and he had been asleep until now. Intruders moved deeper into cargo bay, confident control. Establish standard procedure, eliminate resistance, secure cargo, extract value. Elias stayed standing silent, watching them go, not resisting, not reacting, but calculating, because now he understood. This was not a boarding, this was activation event, something inside Ash had just been triggered. Ash twitched on the floor, once, twice. Neural suppression failing incorrectly. Instead of shutting down him, it was sinking him with ship systems. Elias stepped back slowly, reaching console, inputting ancient access sequence, not civilian, not legal. Military-grade override protocol buried. In ship architecture, Ardent Kron was not a cargo vessel, it was a bio-integrated defense. Prototype disguised as freight transport. Ash's body flickered faintly, interface stabilizing system connection. Forming intruders. Noticed too late lights. In corridor shifted slightly, not dramatic, just wrong enough to be noticeable. One of them stopped. What is this system anomaly? Elias' voice came over, internetshipnetwork.com to com. You should not have touched him. Silence, then confusion. Intruders. Checked weapons, checked sensors. Nothing made sense. Ash stood slowly now, eyes different, no longer animal, but layered perception interface. Active ship synchronization complete. Ash was not waking up, he was connecting. Elias whispered softly there. Your corridors changed shape, not physically, but navigationally. Paths restructured, exits no longer. Where there should be intruders, split automatically, trying to maintain control, but control was already gone. Ash moved first, not running, not attacking, just repositioning, appearing ahead of them without physical transition because he was no longer operating in physical constraints. He was operating through ship awareness network. Elias walked slowly through central corridor, no urgency, no fear, because fear was irrelevant now. Ash was not just alive, Ash was infrastructure. Intruders fired at door panels. Nothing worked. Systems ignored unauthorized aggression. Elias spoke softly. This ship does not respond to threats, it evaluates them. 1. Intruder turned, firing wildly, weapon jammed, mid-discharge, system override. Ash appeared behind him, silently, not biting, not killing. Just disabling movement, neural strike, precise, controlled. Intruder collapsed, but still alive. Panic spread, now real. Panicked because nothing was behaving like technology should. Corridors tightened, lighting dimmed. Environmental pressure shifted subtly, disorientation increasing. Ash moved through system pathways, guiding intruders into containment geometry, not forcefully, but inevitably, like gravity pulling everything toward cliffs. Elias stopped at central command spine, placed hand on interface. Panel ship responded instantly, full activation sequence complete. Ash fully integrated. Elias spoke quietly. You think? This is a shipboarding pause. No, this is correction. Intruders tried retreat. Impossible exit routes no longer existed. Ship had rewritten its own internal map based on threat analysis. Ash stood now visible in multiple positions through system feed. Not cloning but perception, distribution networked, awareness active, every corridor, every angle, every movement predicted before it happened. Elias finally turned toward remaining intruders. Calm voice, last chance, stand down, silence. They did not understand what they were fighting because they still believed they were fighting a ship, but Ardent Crown was no longer a ship, it was a coordinated intelligence field using Ash as its central cognitive anchor. Ash stepped forward, final containment mode initiated. Not violence, just inevitability. Systems aligned, gravity shifts, minor but precise movement. Restricted resistance, reduced without harm. Intruders collapsed mentally, first, physically second. Not killed, just completely neutralized by environmental control. Elias walked over to Ash, placing a hand on his head. Ash blinked slowly, interface glow, fading, stabilizing, system complete. Elias whispered, almost softly, so you were never just a dog. Ash leaned slightly into his hand, like memory returning. Outside the ship, drifted silent inside. It was no longer cargo transport, it was something that learned how to watch before it struck END.